A second. Yep.
Good afternoon. 3 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Sheriff, you and Chief can come up here. Sorry, I don't have enough. Excuse us for the delay. That's everyone but Mr. Jones. Are you set?
Very well,
Thanks,
thanks.
Dennis. You got it?
Can you slide over? Hello. Good, thanks. How about you?
All right.
Okay, let's try again.
Okay. Good afternoon again. My name is Barry Byers. I've been appointed to the chairman of this Police Accountability Review Board. We have some new faces. So why don't we just go around the table and introduce ourselves, starting to my left.
Joan Horsing.
Chief Bill Dempsey, Rockall Police.
Dennis Hickman, Sheriff of Kent County. Ron Dixon, Chief of Police for Chestertown.
Nancy Grammer.
Seth Miller.
Shelley Schofield.
Kate Pritzlaff.
Leon Freisen.
Steve Lyons, Lieutenant.
Gary DeVito.
Tom Davis.
Lamont Cook.
All right, I want to thank you, the new people, for being here, volunteering, stepping up and doing this. Couple things. We have to hold these meetings under the Maryland Open Meetings Act. And we're also going to follow Robert's Rules of Order. I will tell you, like I said before in the first meeting, this is kind of new to me. If I step out of my lanes, just someone speak up, please. I won't get offended. We're getting here today to kind of reestablish this, get this back on track and get it running. We're going to hold quarterly, the Police Accountability Board will be holding quarterly meetings with the sheriff and the two chiefs. And I want to thank you all again for being here today. And then the Police Accountability, or the ACC will be meeting monthly. And we'll meet, the Police Accountability Board will meet as needed. Probably a little more frequently in the beginning until we get more up and running. Staff reports, I'd like to introduce Pete.
Everybody, my name's Pete Landon. I've worked for some of you, I've worked with some of you, I'm friends with others, but I'm glad to be here. The commissioners moved the Police Accountability Board under the Office of Emergency Services just as a liaison to the commissioners. There will be a staff shortly. The accountability officer, consultant, administrative support person will, we're in the process of recruiting and hiring them. They'll be located at the Office of Emergency Services in the detention center building under the sheriff. That being said, I just had a couple things. County Commissioners of Kent County received another grant for 2024 that'll fund the police accountability through June of 2024, and that's the cost to run this board and the administrative support as well. I want to remind you that the Police Accountability Board's members have been appointed by the County Commissioners of Kent County. The Administrative Charging Committee members have been appointed by the County Commissioners, and that's Sev Miller and Gary DeVito. And then the Police Accountability Board nominated or appointed Tom Davis and Shelley Schofield. I'm going to suggest, Barry, afterwards that you probably just send a letter to Tom and Shelley, just to that effect, just for the record. That's essentially all that I have to say, other than you have my email address. One of the things I want to make sure that we do is communicate better and get a regular tempo to what we're doing. We're very fortunate to have not only the law enforcement, but the citizens that are willing to kind of tackle this thing. I'm grateful that Chief Dixon, Sheriff Hickman, and Chief Dempsey agreed to come here. I think it's important to realize realize that this is not an adversarial relationship. We're partners. And we've always enjoyed a great partnership across the board in King County. And I know that we're going to need to depend on each other moving forward. Thank you.
All right, moving forward, I guess I can make a motion that we accept the minutes from our last meeting.
But you have to make sure that everybody reviewed, there's a copy of them in your notes. I apologize for any mistakes. I listened to a tape and transcribed it. But yeah, you should review the minutes, and in lieu of reading them out loud, you can read them yourselves.
Everybody has a copy of it?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. And in our packets, everybody should have gotten the rules and procedures, is that correct? What's on here? No, I'm sorry, it's not in here. As far as the, what's that? Oh, it is in there. I'm sorry. And I know we just got this, but it's kind of going to be our guide. This will be our guide moving forward. Any questions on the rules and procedures? Okay, moving forward, one of the things that was brought up at our last meeting was the police complaint procedures, and chiefs and sheriff, this is where we need some input on. I think what we were all talking about in our first meeting was we make basically the same standard form, even though it's 3 different agencies, and maybe put a box in there, here was making the complaint, to know what agency. So just kind of make a little bit more uniformity. Any,
I'm certainly not opposed to that. I don't want to speak for the other 2 gentlemen, but we can do whatever's easiest to streamline.
So they can also file complaints through the PAB as well.
correct.
So I would think maybe we should just have the universal form, for all.
Well, and I think that was where we were going
Okay,
with this.
all right.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just had a very brief conversation with Pete about, I'm not even sure where that would even be found if someone decided that they wanted to go through the PAB to file that particular complaint. But we only had a brief conversation about it. But I mean, it's, certainly like for us, it's on our website. Our deputies carry the complaint forms around with them. If somebody wants one, we give them one. Luckily, that hasn't happened, at least since I've been sheriff so far, but that has happened in the past, and that's always been our policy. If they want a complaint, we go ahead and just give it to them. So that's part of our inspection list. They have that particular complaint form in their car. If somebody wants it, you give it to them. And a lot of times, they don't even fill it out, but they just want to be able to say that they, received it. But, I would be in agreement with Chief Dixon that we had, one, maybe it's a, Kent County Police Complaint Form. And then that way it would be, on whatever site through the county as well, through ours, and then we can go ahead and swap out our particular forms that we have in our cars, and that way everybody has the same. Is that which way you want to go?
Sure, yeah, I can tell you that a complaint form can be added to the Police Accountability webpage. If anyone's, I'd ask you all to go ahead and take a look at it. It's kind of changed a little in the last couple of days. They gave me the ability to edit and add, and like on there, you can actually, Dennis, after we talked, there's a link to committee interests, uniform committee interests, so you don't have to search all over the Kent County website. It's right there. We can create a tab or a button right on that webpage for a citizen complaint. And that's simple, and I would suggest that Chestertown Police, Rock Hall Police, much like if you take a look at the pictures of the websites that I gave you, it's pretty easy if you want to make a complaint in an automated fashion. Dennis already has it set up for the Sheriff's Department. I think it would come down to the board and the departments deciding exactly what structure or format that would be, my seat's sinking as I talk, would be appropriate and acceptable to everybody.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I got one from the Queen Anne's County Sheriff's Office, and it seems that it's so much better than what the yoga one is, because you have your things at the top for complaints and all that, and then you can put a big summary on the back of it, where the Kent County Sheriff's one is just, very quick.
Yeah.
But I was looking at this one, and I thought this was more comprehensive to what we would need.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly we
Yeah.
can, look at that as a group.
I mean,
Make a
Yes.
collective decision.
but this one too?
Just the backside.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were, people, in other complaints that we've had over the years, people just attach additional pieces of paper and things of
Right,
that
yeah.
nature on there.
But I figured, with this, it's all right there together, and for us just to review real quick.
And then, Pete, I had a question. It's more of a procedural thing when, say we get that link up and get a form on the counties, and someone makes a complaint. Who and who's going to get notified? Because we have a time frame.
Well, yeah, no, it'll be the chair and the accountability officer. I probably will for now because I'm the one behind the scenes organizing it. But yeah, I know you have it's a 3-day window that action has to be taken. I think the best part, or the easiest part, is that this is not a high volume occurrence in Kent County. And again, it's because of the police officers and deputies that you have, as well as the leadership. But that process is set in statute, and we just need to make sure we follow the time constraints.
Would anybody on the committee want to maybe volunteer to compile these forms and try to come up with a form and share it with the rest of us to review? Because I don't think we're going to be able to compile it all and make one report today. Does that make sense?
As I said, I've gotten those, and I've tried to get the state police one, but I can't get that one. And they were told me from the Chestertown Police Department that you just let them write in the complaint. You don't have a form to follow. Is that correct?
That is not correct. No, we do, yeah, and I apologize for that. But no, we do have a form, and it's very similar to what Sheriff Hickman has put out. It's in the attachment there with the web.
Yeah.
They are very close.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the only thing that is different, and I'm sure the sheriff's office and probably all are required to have, if it is a brutality complaint, it does have to have, it has to be notarized, is the only exception.
So, because you brought it up, I think they did away with that.
So that's been, okay, then that's good to know, because I did not know that that part had
As
been.
part of that reform package, they did they no longer.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But that's good to know then. Thankfully, I haven't had that encounter like Sheriff Hickman had said the same thing, but at last check, when I had to actually deal with it in my previous career,
Yep.
it was a notarization. So thank you for that update.
So how about this? I'll compile, try to make a generic one, and I'll send out via email, but we don't have an email for you.
Yeah,
We do?
I do, but I'll have to call Pete and
Okay.
give it to him because I've got it written down. Don't keep it up here.
Yep. And then, I'll send it to everybody. You can make your notes, send it back to me. We can go back and forth. And then at the next meeting, we'll try to hammer this out and finish, complete that task. Any other topics about the complaint form? Any suggestions? Something we didn't cover yet?
Barry, I would make sure that you include the chiefs and sheriff
Yep.
with that draft too, so that way we know it's all,
Of course. Yep.
it's all going around.
And I got your emails.
I'll give you a card.
Is there an IT resource within the county that we have at our disposal to help make sure that it does get on the website,
Yes,
plural, and linked to the right people?
correct.
So they'll just need the form and then who it goes to.
Yes. It'll come back to the accountability officer.
I'll help with that,
Will you?
yes.
Perfect. Okay.
I'll help, we'll compile what they have in existence, compare it, and then consolidate.
I'm
Chair?
good with that. Yes, sir.
Just a point of clarification, it is correct that the statute says a complaint need not be notarized.
Okay. All right. Anything else about the forms? Okay, moving on. One of the other things we brought up at our first meeting was we thought it would be a good idea for members of the board to go on ride-alongs of the different agencies. For those that would want to see what it is, you know, what,
Sure. We welcome it
okay.
anytime, day or night. I mean, it would just take a couple days' notice maybe.
Yeah, yep. Just email, we can work on emails on that, to set that up.
Yeah. No problem. I think it's a great idea and do it in advance before there is
Yeah.
actually an issue.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, and it's no secret, I was a cop for 37 years. I'm probably gonna pass on the ride-along, but I would love,
things have changed. Come on there, wait a minute, hold on here.
yeah,
I mean, but it's a lot different than, you know, back in the day with all of the equipment, the technology,
without a doubt.
it's, yeah, so.
I wouldn't mind doing it myself, you know, like you say, changes, though I'm still quasi-involved in some respects, be good to do that. I'm willing to do it.
Yeah.
And the other part of that too is get the word out there. We're not, this isn't like Pete said earlier, it's not an adversarial board, you know, doing this because we're kind of mandated to, but it's not adversarial. And I know the guys and the women out there in law enforcement might be thinking we're out there to put them under a microscope, so to speak. So I think it'd be a good way to fill in some of those gaps.
Agreed.
Along those lines, whether we're trying to get working along, we got a grant not long ago, and we got a virtual reality trainer. So once we get some situational-based things going, I think it would probably be fun to have you guys go ahead and put that thing on there and go through some scenarios. As long as I'm allowed the body cam video, is that all right?
No YouTube videos. Nothing on YouTube.
No. We don't have that, but we do have tasers that we have to.
So we're in the process of getting all that. We do have the equipment, so we're in the process of getting that moving. We haven't actually had any deputies go through it yet. But the governor's office put out a lot of money for training stuff, so we went for it and we got it. So, so yeah, it was one of the plans and one of the things that we wrote about in the grant that we were interested in having our PAB and ACC members to be a part of it as well.
Good idea.
Any other questions or comments about that? Good. Moving on, one other last piece of old business, nameplates. Can we,
Sure, you can, yeah. You just tell me you want nameplates and we'll have them made. I heard a discussion, there was no motion or anything, but.
right, I won't bring it up one more time. What do y'all feel about nameplates? When we're sitting out here, so we know who we're talking to.
Yeah, I think it's all right.
Honestly, I think after about 3 months, we're not gonna need them, but
But they're important, I believe that they're important for
For the-
the audience
Yes.
and
Okay.
Right, yeah.
And it shows you're a little bit more formal also.
Right.
Yeah.
Another motion.
yes.
I move we, got nameplates for the board.
And I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Brought the book just in case.
Robert's rules.
New business.
Could I bring up
I'm sorry.
an issue along that same line? Again, for those I haven't met, my name is Johnny Jones. I'm sorry I'm late coming in. I just got back from New Mexico, Texas, late last night, so I didn't know whether I was going to make it here. And I wasn't sure, did we have a meeting before this?
No.
Okay. 'Cause
We had one scheduled, it got canceled.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get caught. I had a major surgery in May, and so I'm still recovering, at this point, so. But I know I had raised an issue about having a business card for the members, just in case, just for distribution to the public. I know I was out in New Mexico, and I was a city attorney for Alamogordo, New Mexico. We just had an officer shot. I was a trainer for a lot of the police officers there. I didn't know this particular officer, but I don't know if you heard it on the news. He was just recently shot and killed. But they also, I have friends in Albuquerque. I was a former prosecutor in Albuquerque and our state's attorney. And I know the Albuquerque Police Department is under a consent decree. And I know one of the individuals that is assisting, I guess it has similar responsibilities like a police accountability board. But they were kind of interested in what we were doing out here in Maryland. So I told them we have this new police accountability board. I think I talked with you about it, Sheriff. But I think a business card with our names, it could be a limited number. I know today with the young people, they don't use business cards, it's iPhone. But I was asked if I had a card, when I told them I was on the police accountability board out here. And so well, you can look on the internet on that site. So that's going along the same lines as the nameplate. And I believe the gentleman, I can't recall his name, that was helping to set up this.
Charlie Mills?
Yeah, Charlie says he thought, he didn't see a problem with it. And I just lost contact since then.
I can follow up, and it would all depend on the county and their rules and regulations about boards and commissions. I think it's a good idea, but I don't want to run astray of whatever the practice is in the county.
Right. And I'm also the ethics law commissioner for Chestertown. And we did have cards
Okay.
to distribute, again, once our similar accountability over public and appointed officials. So this is something we're going to raise at our next meeting with the Chestertown, commission. We have a whole new commission in, so anyway, I didn't mean to take up so much time.
It's always good to attach those business cards to your registration.
Yeah. And I
I'll leave that alone.
Just being recorded.
Green lights on, the green
And I would assume all the police officers, they have business cards.
Yep, ours do, yes.
Yeah. So, Yeah, this is the card, this is the one with Chestertown that I'm on right now.
If we're in open discussion on this, I would just, like to say, if that is being considered, it may be more of a general business card with just one or two contact names, maybe the chair, you know, I'm not, it could be agreed upon. But I'm against everyone having cards just because of the turnover, and I believe that we should streamline the communication while letting people know how they can contact and get more information. And you can always write your name and number on the back if you need to, but I'm just a little, I would just like it to be more general.
Me not having your name on it?
I mean, it's not, to me, it's not about my name or anyone's name, but if he's having a discussion with someone that it is, then absolutely it becomes, you know, about him, and he can make that known and maybe put the email address or your direct number or something like that on it. I don't know, I'm just, for some reason, I'm hesitant with that.
Yeah, I know, and as a state's attorney or former prosecutor, we all had business cards, again, to give to witnesses. And we had general cards too, but something that could be more specific, where the person could contact us.
Well, I think people fill us in on what the county's policy is.
Yeah, it could be possible that the county would only allow a generic or a general card. I haven't been with the county that long, I don't want to misquote their procurement.
I agree with Shelley. I think it should be one person, yours, but have enough cards for us to hand out case, you know, it is, but not have our names on it. Because then we're gonna get, all of us is gonna be getting phone calls. Whereas if your name is on there, they can contact you.
Why you get the big box?
Yeah. You're gonna get the phone call at midnight.
I mean, I don't want to sound like a stickler, but I just really look at any contacts, sort of like just educating the public and just speaking with people. I look at it, it's almost a chain of custody issue for me. So I want to know, who did you talk to and what, you know, what is going on with this complaint, if it is related to a complaint. Of course, you know, we can all talk and engage with the community. I think one of the big things is there's hopes that there will be greater community engagement and discussion because of, that's my hope. I don't know what the initial hope of creating this was in Annapolis, but I don't mean to sound like I disagree. I do agree just with keeping a better control over the access.
Okay, moving on, new business. Pete, do you want to speak to this?
Sure. So, I spoke with the executive director of the Police Training Commission yesterday, as well as the woman in charge of the Administrative Charging Committee training. The good news is there's no ACC training scheduled at this time. The members that we have that have gone through training remain trained. The members that haven't, there's nothing to offer at this time. I did voice my desire to have regional training. I know Dorchester County, for example, has not had any training whatsoever. If you look, there's actually an ACC training status website, and Kent County is green, and I thank the people that were able to attend the training. And one thing I wanted to reiterate about training is I know notice could have been given a little sooner to people that were obligated to go to training, and it wasn't. I can tell you that the commissioners appointed, the people that are sitting here, the Police Accountability Board appointed the people that are sitting here. Just because you couldn't or can't make a training for some reason doesn't mean you're automatically off the board. I think we have a vibrant group of people here, And it's not my place, it's not the accountability officer's place to say, you couldn't go to training next week. I think it was a week's notice or whatever. You're no longer a part of the team. So there will be training eventually. There's also, and I know we're gonna talk about trial boards in a minute, but there's actually mandatory trial board training as well. That's only 2 days, but that is definitely in Sykesville. So it's not the week-long commitment. And hopefully, in the future, the ACC training can be done regionally, and I'll work with my counterparts in the other counties to try and get it at least on the right side of the bay.
Chairman? Yes. I hear all that and I understand it all. I believe that the only effect on the ACC is that the members who have not gone through training can't sit on a panel for a case until they've gone through training.
Correct.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussions about that? Okay, moving on to the trial board.
Well, so a trial board hasn't been established yet in the county. It has to consist of an actively serving or retired administrative law judge or retired district or circuit court judge, and that would be appointed by President Fithian from the county commissioners. There also has to be a civilian not on the ACC that's appointed by Police Accountability Board. So that's something that the board needs to do. And then, of course, in the trial board, the departments that are here with you would have an officer at the same rank sit on that board as well. So one of the two things that I would ask you members to do are solicit volunteer judges to see their interest. It would probably be like a legal consultant position that there would be remuneration. I don't foresee there being much business, but we never know. And I think we've been very fortunate not to need a trial board as of yet, but there's going to come a day in the future where we will need one, and we have to identify that judge that would be willing to serve as trial board chair.
Questions, comments?
Under talking with Mr. Mills in the past, there was a talk about possibly having a regional trial board, even sort of, I guess we're talking with like Queen Anne's and maybe even Caroline. I don't even know if that was any discussions that you were aware
Well,
of
that's
or not.
kind of counterintuitive to the statute as it's written. The county is actually responsible for establishing it. I think it's a great idea, but
I mean, I think it says a small law enforcement agency may use the trial board process of another law enforcement agency by mutual agreement. So I think that's where that was kind of falling in under the thought that you can use the two. And I have a little bit of concern because it says that each law enforcement agency shall establish a trial board. So it kind of falls on us.
well,
And that's where I know when I was working with Mr. Mills, he was saying that Ms. Raisin or something was possibly, and I felt very appreciative of his efforts to try to hopefully help us out, but it seems like it kind of falls on us. And, maybe we have to take the reins and go ahead and make sure we get this done. But that's where it was also the talk of, maybe the regionalized, because understanding, at least at this point, as far as I understand it, in Maryland, there hasn't been any trial boards yet. So that's a good thing. And I think that's probably a result of the fact that citizen review boards are historically more lenient, actually, than what police agencies would normally have when in terms of discipline. I think it's fantastic the county's helping out with that. But, the reality is, I guess it really falls on us as, the heads of law enforcement, and that's where I can tell you, it just doesn't seem like, I don't know how that would even work. Retired judge, we have to have some kind of retainer or something like that? Like, how do we even pay for that, or they just have some kind of agreement?
They would be a paid consultant. We've got the funding to have that person available. And that's the commitment that the county has made to the citizens and the board itself.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of locating a retired or sitting administrative judge that would be willing to do that. And again, it is not that much of a commitment, but right now, it's, you're not doing anything.
It's just, you know, just a little bit concerning on, you know, like my part is the fact that it's kind of not established, but yet I kind of feel like the onus is on me to make sure that we have something, and I certainly want to make sure I work closely with you to try to, you know, get that done, but, I mean, as you can imagine, you know, if this winds up having some type of cost to it, I don't have a budget line item for, you know, a trial board, you know, process to be able to pay for that
No,
particular.
but that's what I'm saying.
Person.
The county has made that funding available. So I would suggest that you chiefs and sheriff work with Barry and this board to identify, and you'll have someone, and that's taken care of.
So like the county would pay for the Chestertown Trial Board? And the
Correct.
Rockall Trial Board? Oh, wow.
Correct.
That's good.
obligated to.
Well, that's good to know, because
It's, again, it's an offer made and should be accepted by the county. Like I said, the onus is to locate a judge that's willing.
And I just want to clarify, it can be a retired judge and/or an administrative judge, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think we have a few.
And actively serving a retired administrative law judge appointed by the Chief Administrative Law Judge of Maryland Office of Administrative Hearings is who that particular person could be. Actively serving a retired administrative law judge appointed by the Chief Administrative Law Judge of Maryland Office of Administrative Hearings. And, you know, this is just so much to keep up with to try and understand all these things. And I have been to a couple of trainings, but still it's just so much, and it's a lot of undertaking for, as, you know, a law enforcement official to try to keep on track of this. In the meantime, we're also trying to run an office, make sure we're handling all of our calls as well, you know, so. I think it's fantastic the county's doing that. That's wonderful. Certainly makes it a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier for everybody, but, you know, I just get concerned if we wind up getting to that particular point, you know, are they gonna be looking at Dennis Hickman to say, so what do you got going with this trial board? Do you got this straight yet or not? You know, that's the one thing I'm concerned about. And I don't.
Well,
And
go ahead, sir.
No, I had to read maybe I should.
it's me, Bob.
I got it straight now.
I need to look at the statute a little more carefully, but I know in Chestertown with our ethics, I worked with Stuart Barrow, the former Chestertown attorney, when we were putting together the Ethics Commission. And basically, we have our commission will handle the trial or the hearing. And, you know, I preside as the chair. You know, we have subpoena power, and which is enforced by the district court judge, and we will have the board will try the individual. So assuming you got hit, you won't, with an ethics complaint, and there's procedures that have to go through. But if that complaint is not resolved or dismissed, then we would have to have a formal hearing. Would be like a trial. You'll have opportunity to subpoena witnesses. You know, we can subpoena witnesses. You can have an attorney available. The rules of evidence does not apply. And at that point, whatever the decision is, then you can appeal to the town council, which will hold another hearing. And the rules of evidence does apply. And again, if you lose at that level, then you can try to go over to district court. So I'm not sure what,
If we
sounds
have,
like the.
I know where you're going with that, and I'll give you that packet of
Right.
what it says.
Yeah.
But I just want to clarify the point on the judge issue, is that it can be a district or circuit court retired judge. Therefore, we have at least a district court judge who's retired and a circuit court judge who's expressed an interest. Paul Bowman said he would, if needed, help out. So we got Martha Raisin and Paul Bowman that would have offered their.
Judge Raisin has, she's not interested for personal reasons.
Oh, I thought she was still on the list. Okay. Well, strike that then. Or strike Judge Raisin and But I do know Paul Bowman has said something to me personally about it. Thank you, Jim.
I think that's a move in the right direction.
Yep. Are you going to need any clarification on the retaining that or paying that? No?
Yeah, I mean, I just said a couple words to Pete, that's for the good of the group so you can hear as well. That was one of the concerns from law enforcement agencies with the fact that the high cost of that particular retired administrative judge or whatever, and the amount of money that they were requiring to do that, you know, and also that just not the hearing part itself, but also the decision-making processes and what they would normally be billing for an attorney. And then you're talking about having that from a police agency standpoint. If we had to pay for that, it would be very, you know, it'd be very expensive. It's like great to hear that, you know, the county has some type of grant or something like that that can cover that type of thing, because it could be on your budget, it could be on my budget, you know, Chief Dempsey's budget. I mean, it's just one of those things that you're just like, and you have no idea, you know, how long does it take? I guess as long as they want it to take.
We were told in some of our administrative training with MPTC that it could be tens of thousands of dollars for a trial board, and that was, you know, worrisome during budget season of when you're preparing your budget and how do you do that, you know? So knowing that the county has that set aside, and that's just one way that the town and the county can work together, because we just weren't sure, so.
Actually, Lamont, if Lamont remembers, in 1979, we had a trial board that cost us about $30,000. It was a week-long hearing involving a member of the agency, and it cost us with room and board and meals and the members of the trial board that came in from across the bay, Montgomery County. It was about $30,000, and that was 1980.
Mr. Chairman, not necessarily my place to comment, but the statute just says that the agency has to have a process. They shall establish a trial board process. Now, the MPTCs, whatever the training guys are, they noted that the statute is not a model of clarity, and I think that everybody who's looked at it would say the same thing. But in my mind, and I am a Maryland lawyer, in my mind, I think that opens the door to having an opinion from an attorney saying, all you have to do is come up with a process. It's up to the county to fund it, for example. And if your process and your process and your process happen to be the same, and there's one trial board for all three of you, I think it's loose enough to allow for that. And I wouldn't try and render an opinion based upon me reading this right now, but I think that's a legitimate reading of this, is that you just have to come up with procedures, with a process.
And I was getting ready to talk about, and I agree with you, is that if you look at what's being introduced now because this thing's kind of fluid in the House, and they're specifically talking about just that, the procedures.
Yeah.
And I think they're leaving it vague for a reason.
So when you say a process, I'm thinking this is the difficulty that's with the Ethics Commission, because I think they had talked about trial judge hiring administrative, the cost, and that's why we have a process that's in place that will work itself out. And if the individual wants to appeal, they can actually go into district court, perform a trial on the issue. But we have a process, a trial process in place. So,
And there is that. So I'll give you, it's kind of spelled out how it flows. Is that what you're talking about?
yes.
Yeah, I'll get that to you, and because it's pretty regimented on how they have to, the steps they have to follow. All right. Any other discussion about that before we move on?
Just one thing to add, and I think the other two, the chief and the sheriff would know this as well, is that MPTC now requires, I guess as part of the statute, that police officers that sit on a trial board now have to be trained as well. Prior to the Police Accountability Act, it just had to be that person of equal rank that sat on the trial board. There was no special training involved. As a matter of fact, the first one I ever sat on, I had no idea what I was getting into. I just showed up and they fed me lunch and it was kind of cool. But that was the extent of it. But now you are required to have the training. So we have we have a lieutenant, we have a corporal, we have a patrolman first class, and an officer. It's the only thing we're missing right now. We don't have a captain's position, and we don't have a sergeant's position right now. We will get that, and we'll get that training right away, and I think it's about a 2-hour online training, so it's fairly simple to get. But just something to be cognizant of as far as when you go to do that, it can't just be somebody that happens to be available that day. It has to be somebody that has the training.
Okay, any new business, open discussion at time?
I have questions,
Yes, sir.
Chairman. Charlie Mills had told us that we're going to get laptops. Is that in the works or no?
The laptops have been received, they've been purchased and received. They're not being given out at this time.
Will they at some point?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Now that we're reestablishing communication and work, I think that's a valid thing, but at the time, the board wasn't meeting nor the committee, so there was no need for the county to issue out the laptops.
And what would be the appropriate way to discuss the logistics of how we get, when a complaint comes in, how we get the information from each of the agencies, and what format is that gonna look like? Do you use certain programs that we can have access to, you know, evidence.com and your RMS programs, and at what point are we gonna discuss how we receive and request information from you?
Evidence.com, man. How'd you know that?
Yeah, I was saying, you've said a couple of things that lead me to believe you know.
I do.
Okay, yes.
So part of what I took away from the week training was, that I thought was very, very well done. I was impressed. But it would be helpful on both sides for you to know what our expectations or desires are as far as what we receive from you, as far as your investigation goes, so that we're not coming back and saying, no, I need more details. And also, we need to know logistic-wise, if it's gonna be in an electronic format, then we need to know for the laptops, we need to know access to certain sites for security, and, you know, so that, there's a lot of logistics that go with that, because I think we're beyond, here's a case file with, you know, a flash drive and some paper reports. Maybe not, I mean, that might work, but I just don't know the best place to get in the weeds about those discussions.
That was actually going to be the next, you actually started saying it before I did, about the
Okay.
decision of how do we receive, once you get your investigative file, how do you receive it? You know, and for, the best practices for confidentiality purposes and all that type of thing. I don't know about the, you know, evidence.com. When she said evidence.com, what that means is, so like the Axon body cameras and in-car cameras and all that type, they use the platform called evidence.com. And it's a secure way of being able to share and chain of custody things for your videos. But you can actually just either send a link, or you can even download, you know, that particular video and that type of thing. So, but that was actually going to be my next question, that for the good of the order, to find out, you know, and maybe this can't be decided upon today, but what is going to be the best practice or the practice of, once the agency finishes that particular investigation, how does that particular investigative file get forwarded to members of the Administrative Charging Committee so they can move forward and be able to have communication with the investigating agency and deciding on, you know, what other questions they have, what else they would like to be followed up on, that type of thing. I would assume probably, since you're having laptops, it would all be done, you know, digitally in some way, shape, or form. But I don't, you know, that, I guess that particular part of the process hasn't been decided upon, and maybe we need to talk as a group to decide on how exactly that would be the best way to do that.
Yeah, we definitely didn't cover that in the one meeting.
Yeah.
I know where we're going with this. I kind of want to, I don't want to lump that, man, we have that complaint form that we kind of need to get ironed out too. And I don't want to tie up these guys' times, but what I'm thinking is, our next meeting, a month from now, we can make it more of a work session and iron out, because I actually, we have some other things too to discuss, and, so I think that might be a good time to tackle that. But I kind of wanted to get the complaint form going, because that's kind of like the start of it, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, being part of the county and being this is more of a county platform, I would assume it would probably be some type of server space that would be accessed by members of the ACC, of which, you know, you could be able to go in there and see that particular file and those type of things and everything that goes with it. That's what would make the most sense to me, but I don't know, I haven't worked with, I don't know what IT would decide, and actually, obviously Pete would be a big part of that as well, so. I would assume that would probably be the easiest way of doing it, but, you know, I don't know. Makes the most sense to me.
You had mentioned, privacy information. Some of us had taken a confidentiality oath when we started the first meeting. Some people haven't, I don't think have taken it yet from the county. Just throwing it out there that we're required to keep things confidential that are, when it pertains to personnel matters.
Yeah. And I think, you know, obviously with this being a much more transparent, public process, then I can tell you that, you know, certainly there was, you know, members of the press, when something like this would occur, they're going to want to know the information right away. And that's fine, you know, but of course it can't really be, you know, I guess during some of the hearings, obviously, all these things I believe are all public, I believe.
When
Not
the
the ACC.
investigation is closed,
Not the ACC.
it's not, yeah.
So like, okay, so you're saying that, so once you get your decision, then that would be public,
Correct.
okay.
But the deliberations, the testimony, the evidence, the body cam, the whatever else, we're required to keep confidential.
I guess that would be I guess the trial board process is public? I thought there was one of them that was public. Either way, that's down the road. Okay, yeah, but, you know, and I also saw in the, from the county website and reading some of those about the confidentiality part of it and that type of thing, so.
Yeah, so we'll add into that with the working session, that flow of the investigation and when it's, what is given, in a public, you know, format, and then what's confidential, what again is public, because, in talking with my counterparts in Talbot County, I've learned that Baltimore County defense attorneys are already using closed investigations on police officers to, you know, combat their, yes, to impeach. And, so part of the working will be our process as well as ACC's, what our opinions are gonna look like.
Right.
And we, fortunately, this is full of gaps, and the lawmakers didn't do a great job with that. So we have the ability as a county to say, here's our template, but we need to come to an agreement on that so that we're fair for all parties. So if we could just add that in there, what that's gonna look like. And that way, we can share it with the law enforcement agencies so they know what to expect, because I imagine there's a lot of angst, potentially.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, can I, just a couple of questions, I'm sorry. I was just gonna address this issue, I mean, I don't know if and when we were to get computers or whatever, but in the meantime, if perchance there was a complaint that, maybe there should be a file system set up for each member that's held at the county level, so that they're one individual. If you had to have freedom of the press or whatever, that would come from a county or someone at the head, you're gonna have some type of administrator or something in the future, so that, in other words, you'd have one person knowing what to release about any police officer. And in other words, we have a meeting, once the meeting is over, that person would collect our personnel for whatever went on at that particular meeting, and it's held at the county with only one person allowing a flow of information.
That would be the accountability officer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And receives complaint from public under police accountability